what is a natural singer, what is an unnatural singer, what is a prodigy, these kind of terms. I'm going to explain a little bit to clarify my position in case it's not clear enough. I've got videos about this, but you can always clarify more. So, natural and unnatural. Now this is a level of degree, okay? So natural implies that someone is more capable of something than someone who's unnatural. So that's a scale, okay? It's degrees. I don't mean scale, like scale that you sing, but I mean it's on a scale of 1 to 10, for example. So someone who's natural would be a natural just means that they're highly skilled. That's all it really means. Natural means you're highly skilled, and unnatural means you have no skill. So no skill would be unnatural, okay? Now we can learn skill, but what's the difference then if skill is just natural, unnatural? Then the difference is what you're born with, okay? And this is where I separate the unnatural and unnatural. So natural means that you are capable at learning at a faster rate, and you are just born with this ability, than someone who is unnatural. So there's people that are all born at a different rate of learning. Now this is separate to the skill that you currently have, okay? The skill you currently have is a scale of 1 to 10. I can measure you right now and say you are at this skill level. Now what's different to that, and what's interesting, anyone can develop this skill, okay? Natural and it doesn't matter. So what is natural? What am I talking about? It's a skill that you have, that you're born with. This is harder to measure because that's something that you have to look at somebody's history and how they learned, and it takes a lot more investigation to find out if someone was born with this level of skill or not, okay? Now I personally grew up with my brother, for example, Karim, who I would term a natural. So I understand his story because I've lived with him. I know him from his birth. I'm 11 years older than him. I watched his development from the very moment he was born to what he is today, okay? I lived with him until 2 years ago. So I lived with him to the point where he showed the skill level that he currently has, okay? Here's how I know that he's a natural and I'm an unnatural. A natural is born with an ability to pick up music by themselves without assistance. This is the distinction between a natural and an unnatural. A natural does not need a teacher. They don't need a book. All they need is the art. So all I did was give my brother, and many students, by the way, many students that I taught in high school over the years, all I did was give them the art. I just gave them the music, the piece of music, and I said, copy this. That's it. A natural will figure this out without assistance. They don't need to slow it down. They don't need to break it down in a really slow way or in little bits and pieces or anything. They might do that in their head, but you won't know what they're doing until they describe to you that that's what they're doing. So they'll learn it without assistance, okay? So you could argue that having the song in the first place is assistance, yeah? So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that they create everything entirely on their own. I'm saying that they create their own learning method without having someone to tell them. So they will hear the music, they'll hear the run, they'll hear whatever, and they'll just copy it without being told, this is in the key of C, and this is this note, and this is this part of your range, and you have to use this kind of voice to reach that note. They don't need to know none of that. They don't need to know none of that. Karim figured this out. At first, the first I noticed Karim figuring this out was when he was 12 years old. Okay, he was 12 years old. He could figure out stuff that I couldn't figure out even after I had gotten books and learnt about singing. I'd learnt a couple of methods, maybe 2 or 3 singing methods, and I still couldn't figure out things in songs. I still couldn't figure out how to copy notes correctly, even just to sing melodies. I couldn't figure out how to copy runs at all, but I could, even just normal melodies, I couldn't figure them out. And I noticed that Karim could. And that's when I noticed, when he was 12-ish, when he started to show an interest in the same music that I was showing a strong interest in, Boyz II Men, etc. I was like, whoa, how does he know how to copy this? How did I know? I could hear that he was copying it correctly. And I could hear that I wasn't. Okay, I could tell that I wasn't copying these notes right. I'd record myself, play it back. I sounded crap. Something was missing. That's what I mean by crap. I mean, I wasn't 100%, whereas Karim was 100. Karim was copying it 100%. I was like, what's going on here? And then I say to him, Karim, copy this. And as I learned more about it, I started looking into it, into like prodigies, or into as I learned more about how to copy music, like from guitar books, piano books, singing books, I started to get a sense of what copying really was and what it took. And then I would test Karim and I'll be like, copy this then. Sometimes we'd just be jamming and I'd notice that he would copy something and it would sound nicer than me while we're jamming. Maybe we recorded ourselves. We love to record ourselves singing to songs. And I'll be like, or we'd just be jamming without recording ourselves. And I noticed that he sounded nicer than I would. And I couldn't tell why. Okay, and then as I learned more, I started to learn why. I learned he's copying the notes more accurately than me. He can hear the distinctions between notes more accurately. And as I started to slow down music, I started to notice this more. So then I started researching what naturals are. And then I learned, other people have learned about this, obviously. I'm not the first person to come up with it. But I was coming up with these concepts without having a notion of anyone else discussing them yet. So I came up with these concepts, and then I looked online to see is anyone else coming across these same things. Surely enough they were, and then I found out about prodigies, and I found out that naturals have an incredible memory. They've tested their memory in other areas, and it tested true with Karim. Karim could memorize entire songs that had very difficult, like guitar pieces, for example. You could sing them back or play them on guitar accurately, and he would memorize the whole thing. And then when I got to the point where I could actually learn this stuff by slowing it down, I noticed that memorizing it was a whole other difficulty. Karim could memorize a whole piece, complicated, very complicated piece. Not runs like guitar parts, which is just like runs, but it's with guitar instead of voice. He could memorize all these melodies, whereas I would memorize a 3-second melody and it would take me like a good week or so to get it really comfortable, right? Karim could memorize and play this melody on guitar within a week, not the 3 seconds, 3 minutes of this melody, he would memorize it. That's what I mean by natural. They have an incredible memory, they can figure it out, they don't need help to figure out melodies. Okay? What else? And the speed at which they do it is way faster. So you'll notice in one of my recent vids I said Karim learned something that took me 2 hours to learn, and I'm not counting the training it took me to get to that point where I could learn it in 2 hours. So really it took me dozens of hours to get to this point. It took Karim 2 minutes to learn. Now let's add some time, maybe it took him 2 minutes because he's been learning so much runs and stuff. Alright, so let's say yeah, the point is where we're at right now, it took me 2 hours to learn something. Maybe half a year ago I learned it or something, and I wasn't significantly worse half a year ago. I was still pretty good. It took him 2 minutes to learn it. You got to also take into account he started singing like properly, trying, when he was 12. I started singing when I was 15. I'm 33, he's 22. So I got about 10 years of practice more than he does. So he's way ahead. And he's still way ahead. His vocals, the fact that I'm 33 and he's 22, he's way ahead. And I've been spending 8 years or 10 years or whatever learning more than he has. Okay, he's way ahead. It's not down to nothing. Okay, where did I start? No, that's another video, and I'll make a different video about that. Okay, bye.